Hi everyone, here we are, one of my favourite parts of the week. It's a Think Differently Thursday. My name's Helen from the Forge Church, and yeah, super lovely for me to have my friend Ruth with me today. Hi Ruth.
Hey.
Are you okay?
Yeah, a little bit nervous, but I'm all right, yeah.
Don't be nervous, don't be nervous. I know you pretty well, I've known you for quite a long time really, but people might not know you. So do you want to just briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Ruth and married to Philip, and we've got two boys, Alfie and Thomas.
Fab. And I think, you might correct me, I think I've known you for about 20 years because I actually do remember being told that there was this new young couple coming to church, just married, and to look out for them. And I do remember like that first week probably pouncing on you, like, are you the newly married couple? Was that 20 years ago? How long have you
It
been
was
married
actually
now?
21 because
Ah,
we got married on the 15th of April, the year 2000. So it's nice
okay.
and easy to remember.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, 21 years. So I was 21. Was I 21 when we got married? 21 when I got married. Yeah. So
Right. Everyone's now calculating how old you are
yeah.
now. When I was 42, I had a party and it was like my second 21st.
Yeah.
um, so Ruth, crazy, strange, odd year for everybody. And you've lived through it the same as everybody else. If you had to sum up this past year in 3 words, if you had to pick 3 words, what would they be? What's your year been?
I think if it was one word, it would just be blooming hard. Oh, that's 2 words actually, but yeah, homeschooling, same as most parents. That has been my life.
Okay.
Redundancy,
Okay.
and trying to work as well. So not redundancy for me, redundancy for Philip at the
Right.
beginning of lockdown. So yeah.
So the combination of homeschooling and working and your husband's redundancy, that literally, no wonder you said blooming hard. That does sound really hard. Yeah, homeschool. How old are your boys now?
13 and 16.
Okay, yeah. So homeschooling, I'm a teacher and I take my hat off to anybody that has been homeschooling. You know, I have chuckled with my Jack, who's, you know, grown up and teaching himself now, about how tricky that would have been if we had had to homeschool, because it was so hard to get him to read his reading book when he was, you know, primary school for 10 minutes, let alone try and do any homeschooling. I know it would have been really, really hard. Yeah, I applaud anybody that has done the homeschooling. I don't know, as teachers we've tried to make it, you know, engaging and as easy as possible, but it's such an alien concept, isn't it? But actually I do know that your boys have done well, haven't they? Haven't they been applauded for their diligence and hard work throughout lockdown?
They have. I mean, I work in school, so I'm a HLTA, which means I cover teachers when they've got sort of planning time. So I was in school, and trust me, teaching a class of 30 is a lot easier than your own child. Alfie, which we might talk about later, didn't have much work to do.
Okay.
And he actually went back to school in May in the first lockdown.
Okay.
Thomas was at home the whole time in the first lockdown, because Philip was obviously at home.
Yeah.
He did what he could do on his own, and then I picked up the pieces when I got back from work. But he did incredibly well. Yeah, he was forever getting school awards, you know, being in the top 10 for reward points in the whole school. Yeah, he did really well. And then in the second school lockdown, Alfie went throughout, slightly shorter days. And because Philip was working and I was still working as well, Thomas went into school while I was working, and that worked, and he loved it, and
Right.
worked really hard at school and mostly at home. We tried to cram in the day's work in the morning,
Yeah.
so then we could sort of chill in the afternoon. So yeah, they did do really well.
Yeah, and no one had any preparation for it really, did they? It was just like this alien thing that people just haven't had to do and live through. So yeah, hats off to you for all that you've done. And on top of working and homeschooling, Philip was made redundant.
Yeah, so his company that he'd worked for nearly 20 years went into liquidation. And he was lucky enough to be, he knew it was kind of happening, so he was furloughed until the redundancy actually occurred.
Okay.
And his boss at the time set him up in business. He's servicing classic cars. That hasn't quite gone to plan, and I'm not going to bring that all up now. So it has been really tough. You know, if you wanted to think differently Thursday with Philip, if you've got 3 spare hours, then yeah. So yeah, it was tough, because in the beginning he was looking for jobs and there just wasn't anything.
Such a difficult time to do that.
Yeah. So yeah, that was tough. You know, money and everything else. You know, where can we cut corners, and yeah, what can we do? But it's all worked out. So
you kind of feel like you're out the other side of that and back to something of kind of normal routine with work and school, and Philip's kind of, the whole work thing has settled down with his new businesses. So is life feeling a little better now?
As better as my life is, because yeah, there's a few little tricky bits in our life, but yeah, definitely come out the other side and feel a lot better than I did this time last year. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You sound like you need a holiday. Is that like we all do? Is that something that have you got one booked, or are you looking for weekends away or anything?
We have one booked, but we probably won't be able to go. So we booked to go to Centre Parks in Belgium last summer. A lot cheaper to go to Centre Parks in Belgium. It's half the price. And then obviously that didn't happen, so we shifted it to the May half term this year. That's not going to happen, so we've shifted it to the end of August, but still not thinking that's going to happen. So short answer is probably no.
Right. Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? I think, similarly, I've got some things that are on their sort of 3rd or 4th rebooking now. And almost like, I think, just doing it and thinking, wow, we'll see if it happens. Again. So like me, you've been in and around our church for a long time, and you've seen lots of changes. You would have seen changes in our size, because when we met that time, I pounced on you. We were in Mendlesham, weren't we? We were Mendlesham Christian Fellowship. So you've seen different changes in size and location particularly. So looking back on those 21 years of being part of the Forge, what would you say have been highlights for you?
I mean, what stands out is the people that I've met.
Okay.
You know, some incredible people in, that 21 years.
Yeah.
But also I was involved with the launch of Thurston. So those initial meetings and prayer get-togethers with a core team, because I was going to be heading up Tot Street. I've been doing Tot Street for 21 years.
Right.
So yeah, I then took on the role of running Tot Street at Thurston. So yeah, definitely a highlight, and again meeting so many new people and really feeling a big part of something really special. Yeah,
that's great. And where do you sit with it? Because obviously loads of conversation now about being able to physically come back together, and I think people are in different places, aren't they? Some people are really worried about sort of coming into close proximity with others. Some people have been watching online obviously and really adapted to it and really enjoy it and want to stay doing church that way, and other people just can't wait to be back in the same place together. Where do you guys sit with it? What are you kind of thinking and feeling?
Bit of a mixture. We've very much followed the COVID rules, and we've had to go to work, and I've had to be in the classroom with 30 children. But we haven't met with people. I haven't hugged my parents for over a year, which has been the hardest thing, I think. So yeah, a bit nervous about coming back, but really excited as well, you know, there'll be new people there, there'll be people I haven't seen because we've been in Thurston and now we're joining back together, so there'll be people that I haven't seen for, you know, 6-7 years maybe, which is really exciting. So yeah, I'm a bit of a mixture, but yeah, really looking forward to coming back.
That probably describes what a lot of people are feeling, I would imagine, a little bit of both. Yeah, some nerves around it, but some excitement. And yeah, that whole idea of seeing people that perhaps we've not seen as part of church for quite a long time is exciting, isn't it? And I know that you and Philip have always, you know, you described Tot Street, our little ones within church, you've described being part of that. And I know you guys have always served in church. And we're at a place now where we're spending quite a lot of time just trying to work out, you know, who we've got, people volunteering and putting teams together again. Why would you say, what has driven you? Why have you as a couple, and I know actually in going forward you're looking as serving as a family, the boys doing that as well, why have you invested in volunteering?
The church can't function without volunteers. It's as simple as that. And a lot of people, you know, I've approached people to come and maybe help in Tot Street, and a lot of people have obviously volunteered, and that's fantastic. I've had other people that have just turned and said, well, I want to be in church, I want to be in the service, and we all want to be in the service, but the more people that help, the more time we can be you know, in the services. So it is just, I've grown up in a Christian family, going to church and seeing my parents literally doing everything, you know, the kids work, the youth work, the setting up, taking down. Yeah, it's kind of, that's what you do. And it, like I said, it won't function if we haven't got volunteers. And like you said, going forward, there isn't going to be a youth congregation for my boys' age actually within the service, and so I sort of told them this, and like, oh well, what are we going to do? And I said, well, a couple of weeks you'll maybe be in the service, but maybe you'd like to get involved with what's going on. And Alfie's very keen on being involved somewhere with media. And
I literally thought that time I walked with you and he was doing his filming and things, I thought, I'm sure that could be a place where you could be really useful and get a lot from it as well.
Yeah, so I think we're kind of looking at that for him. And brilliant. Thomas is fantastic with children, younger children. So yeah, we're all going to get involved. I'm not going to be heading up Tot Street. I've made that decision, as you know. But I would suspect I will still be in there serving. I'm probably not into children's because of working in a school. I think I'd be too strict. I want them all to sit and be very quiet. And again with Philip, he was doing welcome and set up and take down and children's. So he's just going to look and see where the need is. He said, I'm happy to do anything. You know, if there's 20 people that wanted to do welcome but only 4 for setup, well, I know where I need to be. So
we just need to capture that heart that heart to serve. It's just wonderful. And I'm excited about your boys serving. I think as a young person I got involved with helping with kids stuff, and I honestly think it's a place where we grow when we volunteer and we serve. I think we build community, but I think it does something to our faith as well. I think it's part of an outworking of our faith, so I'm excited about your boys doing that. Now, thinking about your boys, I obviously knew you before your whole parenting journey began. In fact, we were in small groups together, weren't we? We would meet in my home, and I think we were here because I'd got small kids and I was trying to get them to bed. But I know that as you were looking forward to starting a family, it was a really difficult time for you. I can remember lots of tears in small group because that stage of starting a family kind of took a different route, didn't it? Do you want to tell us about the sort of path you found yourself on?
Yeah, so you know, we always knew we wanted to have children, and it was happening. And we found out actually sort of 3 years into marriage. It was the night, it was the evening, we had a phone call from the doctor sort of 6 o'clock, can you come down? He didn't want to kind of leave it, and gave us the news that we wouldn't be able to have children naturally. It was the day before my brother's wedding, and that was difficult enough. You know, we'd been married 3 years. It's probably the last time we'd seen a lot of the family. So their initial question was, so when are you having children? So yeah, it was tough. And so we talked and we prayed and we spoke to people. It was my grandma, she was very matter of fact. We said, well, there's lots of other options, you know, you can do this and you can do this. And so we started on the IVF route. And it worked first time, and we had Alfie, and then it worked second time and we had Thomas. So, you know, we were very blessed that you know, we had the boys at the end of it.
Does it still feel quite emotional to reflect on it now? Yeah. And I do remember that in that small group we prayed, and I think to me it is a reminder as well that actually being a Christian and having faith in God doesn't mean life is easy, does it? It doesn't mean it's necessarily an easy path. How did your faith help or come into play during that time? Because it was a difficult time. I can remember it.
Yeah, I think the hardest point was while we were going through this, there were 3 other couples that were pregnant within our small group. So that kind of added to it. But I can honestly say there was never a time when I got cross or angry with God about it. I kind of saw the bigger picture that, you know, this was obviously what was meant to be happening, and whatever route we went down. I had parents that were foster carers, so I was very aware, you know, that there were other options. And so yeah, our faith wasn't really rocked at that point. Yeah, of course there was the questioning, why us, why other people, you know, but yeah, I think we drew closer to God through that tricky time.
Which I think often is people's experiences, isn't it, during darker, more uncomfortable times. Yeah, people just draw closer to God. And of course the evidence is there, and you've said that the IVF was successful. You've got your 2 wonderful boys, and so has it been a parenting breeze ever since, Ruth?
Absolute doddle.
Good, we'll move on. I know that's not true.
So yeah, long story short, Alfie was diagnosed with autism. Finally, by the age of 6, we kind of knew when he was about 2, but it wasn't clear cut at the time. It's definitely clear cut now. But yeah, it was a difficult time. It was a relief. I remember the consultant who finally gave that diagnosis, and he said, you know, what does this mean? I'm getting emotional now. And I said, it means I'm not a bad parent.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it had been so hard, hadn't it? And I think, yeah, the unknown often is harder. Once you know and there's something definite, it makes more sense, doesn't it?
I mean, schooling was hard, or has been hard. Primary school, he spent a lot of time out in the corridor, under the table, not accessing school. He then went to middle school, so middle schools were still thing. But he was sort of in the last year to go to middle school, so he only actually spent 2 years there. So he went to Stowmarket Middle, and he went into this class of about 10 children with the most amazing teacher, and we really saw him grow in that year. And then she left, and it wasn't quite as successful the following year. Then up to high school, year 7, he coped brilliantly. Again, an amazing form teacher.
Right.
But then it became apparent sort of over the next year that he just wasn't accessing education. They weren't able to meet his needs. They were fantastic in what they did. So he then went to another school, a special school, and that all seemed pretty good. We thought we were in a good place. That didn't work out. He ended up getting excluded for something that he really couldn't help it do with his autism, and the school actually turned around and said he can come back when he changes his behaviour. So if anybody knows how to change his autism, then that is great. So he was out of school for 6 months. My parents were an absolute godsend in that time because they looked after him Monday to Thursday while I worked. And then he and is now at a school in Colchester, specifically with children with autism. There was about 48 in the schools, about 5 in class with the same amount of adults. And he's just, so yeah, he's in an amazing place, but it doesn't mean that it's easy.
No.
It is. Lots of people meet him and say, oh, isn't he just so lovely? And, you know, so many lovely things about him. And he is amazing, but it is really hard work.
Yeah. And I think, you know, you've described that actually the difficulty of having children in the first place and going through that route of IVF, and then to discover that Alfie has autism, that is really hard. Some people would say, what is the point having faith if this is what life throws at you, if you are to encounter these kind of difficulties? Or they might say, well, where's God in all of that then? How would you answer those critics?
I think God likes to keep me on my toes, to be honest. You know, he was laughing when he sorted my family out, but so many good things have come out of it. Yes, it is tough. It is really tough. We've lost friends, and there's a lot of things we haven't done because of Alfie's autism, but so many good things have come out of it. And yeah, it's just not gone the way we thought, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong.
It reminds me of when I think I'm going to get this right, when I was doing my teacher training and we did a unit about children with additional needs. I'm sure we were read a poem. I won't remember what it was called, but it was kind of describing someone having a holiday planned, I think, and a trip to somewhere exotic, or, you know, Bahamas type thing, and something happening that meant they ended up in Holland, and life led to, or the holiday led to, adventures and all the beautiful things about Holland. But it was like, but I was expecting to go to the Bahamas. And the point of the whole poem was that this is a bit what it's like to have a child with additional needs. Does that resonate with you? You're saying about, you know, not having done some things, but actually done other things that you wouldn't have done. Does that resonate with you? Do you know that poem? Am I
yes,
talking about?
No. It is. I again can't remember. It was definitely Holland we ended up in. And I used to have it stuck on my fridge. So yeah, I mean, Alfie's 16 now. He still comes up to me, "Mummy cuddle." I get cuddled loads. I'm not sure if Alfie didn't have autism, whether he would be that huggy at 16. He is extremely polite. If anybody's ever met him, his manners are impeccable. He's really helpful. You know, I'll hear him bashing about and he's putting the washing on or emptying the dishwasher without asking. So we quite like our Holland. He's also an absolutely incredible runner. He sort of 200 and 400 meters. I think it's his long legs. He's now 6'3". Wow. Oh, told you the big cat. Say hi.
Hello.
Oreo.
I love it when animals arrive.
Go to so yeah, the running has just taken us to places that, you know, he may well have been a good runner anyway, but he's been involved in a thing called Special Olympics, which, yeah, we've been all over the country, and they were meant to have a big national games happening in Liverpool this year, and unfortunately it was cancelled. But he did have some private coaching before COVID, and he's good enough to be sort of competing mainstream running now. So whether we'd have seen that and known that had we ended up in the Bahamas, I don't know, but yeah, some great things have come out of it.
So. Fabulous. And I know in sort of thinking about chatting to you this morning and thinking, you know, what are the big parenting struggles, and people would have lots of different ones. There's brilliant things about having kids, but I think lots of people have struggles too. But there's been other stuff this year as well, hasn't there? You know, completely aside from Alfie, there's been difficult things with Tom as well, haven't there?
Yeah, so Thomas is now in year 9, and when he was at primary school, there was only about 12 of them in the class, in a village primary school, and I think only 4 boys went up to high school with him. So he went into year 7, and pretty much straight away he started to get bullied. And unfortunately, the child that was bullying him was a child that had come from his primary school, lived in our street, went on the school bus with him, and it just got progressively worse. It was just the low-level comments, pushing in the corridor, blocking the doorway, which escalated and made it really tricky for Tom. He wasn't sleeping, he wasn't eating. He could see the boys' house from his bedroom. We were lucky enough, we've got a spare bedroom, so we could move him to the back of the house, which kind of helped. But this went on all through year 7, and other children got involved, as they do. And he actually turned to me in year 7 and he said, if you have to behave in that certain way to fit in, I don't want to fit in. I thought, in the middle of all of that going on, that he could think like that. School were great. School, yeah, they were great, and the child had consequences and isolations and exclusions, and but I was pushing for him to be moved out of that class, and that took a year to actually get them to agree to move him to another class and to the other side of the school. The school sort of split into two halves. So started year 8 a lot happier. Things were still happening because he was still bumping into this child, but obviously not to the same degree. And he was a lot happier, and then COVID happened. And then he went back in the September, quite happy, and had a couple of really good weeks, and then it kind of hit him. He was missing being at home. He went to school every day. He was so resilient that he went to school every day, and he wasn't always going into lessons, but school, the pastoral work at that school was phenomenal, and is phenomenal. And they just let him go in the breakout room, which is sort of their pastoral room, and he made the decisions which lessons he went into. The lessons he didn't go into, he did the work in there, and within time he started to get back into more lessons. And by Christmas, you know, he was back into classes, still, you know, finding things a bit tricky, not eating and sleeping again, ringing me a lot because he didn't want to be there. But we stuck at it, and we were ready to start in January. And then we had the second school lockdown. But I think going into school those 3 days, which he really enjoyed, made going back in March a lot easier.
Yeah.
And so he went back, and obviously I was nervous and he was nervous, and within an hour I get a phone call from school saying he's had a bit of a wobble. But they said, we've talked it through, we've looked at the timetable, we've gone and visited, because they changed where their classrooms were going to be, the bubble had moved, gone and looked where he's going to be. He seems happy, and he's going off to the second lesson, and he hasn't looked back. He's been in every lesson, he's really happy. He'd always gone on the school bus in the morning, but there were issues with coming home on the bus, but we've started that process, so he's now 2 afternoons coming home on the bus. I pick him up the other 3. So yeah, he has done incredible, and he's been so resilient.
Yeah, really sounds like he has. Sounds like you've done such a great job as well. It's so hard, and I'm a mum, and I can't imagine. We want to protect our children, don't we? We want our children to be happy. And to think that somebody else is causing them unhappiness, I think it's so hard. How do you, as a Christian, how do you bring your faith into that? Where does God stand in that? I mean, how do you as a mum reflect in your reactions, in your responses? How do you reflect your faith and your relationship with God well, when surely at times you just want to take the law into your own hands and have a word? I mean,
especially when they live just within eyesight. I never did. I never said anything or did anything. We did have an incident where we had to get the police involved. That's a whole different ball game. And she did actually come to my door and speak to me, and I very nicely just explained how my child was feeling. And she didn't actually seem that bothered about it all. But there we go. I don't know the answer to that. I think, I don't know, it's just not in me. I'm not a confrontational person, whether that's due to my faith or due to me. I'd rather sort of stew or cry down the phone to my mum. I had a lot of people, I had a lot of support. I didn't feel I needed to rant and rave at people. The better way was to talk about the solution and be there for Thomas. It's no good me making things even worse for him or for the situation. So I never felt as if I wanted to go around and rant the person. But I mean, it was tricky, because Tom would come out of the front door and you'd see him sort of looking around, just checking this child wasn't there. But he has actually moved. His mum still lives in the street, but he's now moved, so he's not seeing him on a day-to-day basis, which helps a little.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people have been praying for you and for Tom during this time as well. I'm so glad it's in a better place than it was.
Keep praying though, because
yeah, definitely. And I know Tom's got several more years of school, but Alfie is older. I did, as I said earlier, I met him with you recently in lockdown, and he was just so warm and funny, and just had a real enthusiasm for life. What's next for Alfie?
So Alfie, if he was in mainstream school, he would be in year 12 now, so lower 6th. And we were told he would be leaving in September. Where he was going then, we don't know. He wasn't ready. He hadn't been in the school very long. He joined the school in the September before COVID hit in the March. He needs another year. So a few meetings, and has to go to panel because he needs funding from Suffolk to go to school in Essex. And we found out a couple of weeks ago that he's spending another year at the school, which is a huge answer to prayer. And then he will be able to have a good transition to whatever his next.
So Yeah, I can't believe you're at that stage with it as well.
I
It feels like it's gone so quickly. What about, how does Alfie, how does he find church? I mean, I think like loads of places, we have to work at catering for people with additional needs, don't we? Do we do that well, or what can we do better as church to kind of help him find his place?
Alfie loves going to church. He hasn't accessed anything during lockdown,
Okay.
because it's just too hard for him. But he loves people. He loves chatting. He doesn't always like to listen to replies, and you wouldn't necessarily have a conversation. It would just be him telling you what he's doing and what he's up to and what he's going to do in the future, again and again. But yeah, the hard thing is people avoiding. Not everybody, you know, but you can see people sort of go, oh, he's coming up to speak to me. I feel that same way. But yeah, just people taking a little bit of time, just say, hi Alfie, how are you? Yeah, time, just to see how he is. And it literally would take 5 minutes, and that will mean so much to him. And for me as a parent, it will mean so much. And we do have adults and younger people and children within our church that have additional needs, and it's just taking the time to just say hello. It taking a couple of minutes of your time just to speak to them will just mean so much.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good for us to hear, definitely. It's been so lovely to chat to you, and you are an amazing mum. You have coped with such a lot, and you're really inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And I know it's not an easy thing always to chat about, but I think it's really helpful for other people to hear your story as well. So I'm really, really grateful. Just to finish with, we kind of started by saying we'd known each other for over 20 years now, and so there's a load to reflect on over those years. If you could go back and give a piece of advice to your 21-year-old self, what would it be? Because at that stage you didn't know all of these things that you were going to need to navigate in life. So what advice would you give to your former self?
Pray
nice
more.
Question. Nice easy question.
Very just to finish. Definitely pray more. Try not to take things into my own hands, but also be kinder to myself. I blame myself for a lot of things which aren't my fault. And just not worry what people think, because the people that are important will stay around, and the people that aren't important, well, there we go. I think I tried to please and fit in with everybody. And that just doesn't work. I think just be myself, and just don't be so hard on myself.
Great advice to all of us, I think, really. Thank you, Ruth. I've really appreciated chatting to you. It's been really helpful and insightful. So thanks for giving us your time today. Have a good rest of your day. See ya. Bye.